Fiona and Cake Season 2. What a premiere. I'm actually more excited for this season now than I was for last season. All that, and I believe the return of the Lich is on the way. Let's talk about it. All right, guys, right here back for Geek. We're gonna just cover all things Marvel, DC, Lord of the Rings, anime, gaming. If you're subscribed to the channel, you know we cover a wide plethora of stuff, including the fact that we covered Fiona and Cake's early season. Now that we're on to season 2, I'm expecting bigger and much more grander things. And honestly, it looks like we're gonna get that. It seems we're focusing more on the magical aspects of things as opposed to more of the nitty-gritty boring stuff like the 9 to 5 stuff, the stuff that we deal with pertaining to our world, the stuff that, like, the whole reason we're watching these shows is escapism, voyeurism. We want to be able to live these lives where we're on these fantasies and all these adventures. And it seems in these adventures, things have taken an absolutely wild turn for Finn, who is not only older, but he's usually much wiser, much more seasoned, much more tough. But it appears in this episode that he has been massively injured. There are giant claw marks going all along his spine that are of a weird resonation of green. And if we know anything about the weird color of green, whenever it pertains to this series, it usually is nuclear fallout or the Lich. And as there's no nuclear fallout pertaining to the world of Ooh at this moment in time, I'm going to have to go hazard a guess that the Lich has returned in some manner, way, shape, or form through some kind of weird loophole pertaining to the fact that now Fiona and Finn seem more and more magically linked than they ever have been for a long period of time. As the episode kind of got ongoing, we saw that we were building up the after the fallout of last season because we got attacked by our evil bug overlord and things went absolutely crazy. The city was decimated. People were kind of struggling to get things put back together. And Gary ended up losing his shop, but Gary was about to have a brand new store. Him and Marshall Lee were getting things really patched together there. Cake has a crush on a dark unicorn style character. So stop me if you've heard that before. A unicorn character with our sidekick in a rather romance and a rather eager text me with a exclamation point at the end there. So I think that romance will be absolutely interesting to see what we have going on here pertaining to them, as well as the fact that it seems like Fiona seems to be focused on trying to focus on herself, even though she does have a crush on the male version of, probably I would call it the Enchanter Hunter, as opposed to the Enchantress Wizard that we see pertaining to, Finn's world. And the reason that they have become linked, I believe, is when we saw the giant scratch on Finn along the side, all of a sudden we saw a scratch that should not have appeared on Fiona's hand at all, as well as a thorn that was attached to it. When we were going through all the different investigation steps, because Huntress Wizard is with Finn romantically, he explained that he was attacked by a bear in the heart of the forest, and that Simon was somehow involved in it because, of course, Simon is going to be wrapped up in a series of events that he wants nothing to be a part of. Ever since he's picked up this crown, it's been one magical problem after one other magical problem. The man has been in a bad situation to a bad situation to a worse situation because he was about to get his life back together. He had picked up a magical teaching job where he's talking about magical artifacts, and he had the Enchiridion of all things just chilling as one of his things on display to kind of flex on his class. And he was trying to be the cool professor, and he was trying to show off, some people said I was kind of a nice king because he wanted to be a little bit edgy because he wants to be cool for the kids. And there is a young Peppermint Butler, and shout out to Pep Butt, one of my favorite characters from the original. Him and Gunter were my two absolute favorites. So seeing just even one of them back in some kind of regard, fantastic. And I think with the fact that we're getting a lot of the elements reintroduced, because DJ Flame is one of the characters that we seem to have a lot of back and forth with, non-positive as well as Queenie. And the fact that we, throughout the episode, as we're walking through Fiona's world, We saw I think it was Strawberry Queen hanging out in the background. We still have LSP, who's now basically some kind of squirrel god or squirrel, denizen, or however you want to put it, where the squirrels seem to worship, you know, LSP as some kind of leader because they sleep literally on LSP in the park on the ground. Very, very interesting and very bizarre in that regard. I think the elements are slowly coming back to Ooh, and we're going to have to figure out what was going on here. We had cameos from the original Bubblegum, the original Marceline, as they're much older now. They're just hanging out with Simon, and Astrid kind of was explaining some of the backstory pertaining to how these worlds are slowly coming together. There's a lot of different stuff and a lot of different elements that they're pulling on that I think is going to make for a very coherent story. I think it's going to be very enjoyable. I think there's going to be a lot of wild and crazy fan theories. I think the Lich is probably the craziest one out there. I think personally for me, it makes a lot of sense to be able to have the character come back, but it needs to be done correctly. The Lich was easily one of the most terrifying creatures and creations or abominations that Ooh has ever seen, period. And I, for one, was definitely all here for being able to see the character in his glory for everything that he was, because he was so damn evil for several seasons. So the fact that we're now, in a new spin-off, and we may be able to reintroduce the character and kind of give a new spin on it, maybe even more twisted, could be it, because I'm believing it's also the Lich, because when we got a little bit of a flashback where Simon was discussing this bear attack and everything that was going on, it had a mask right here that was white and everything else was green around it. If we remember correctly, when we see the Lich, it looked almost like he was two hollowed out slits here for where his eyes were. It was white here and then green all around, much like his usual hood and his usual creations. So I think that the bear could be some kind of incarnate version of the Lich, which somehow pertaining to the Heart of Forest, I think is going to be really interesting to how they're going to draw that all together. But again, I could be on some wild tangent, some wild goose chases by seeing a couple colors, a couple different looks where I'm just pulling on some red strings that just actually aren't there. And we end this episode with learning the fact that Enchantress Wizard is going through the forest and has finally gotten to the heart of the forest, where we see this bush that is like radiating this weird kind of green. It looks, like it's some kind of like nuclear fallout green or like some lich color green. It's got some weird glow to it. It's some kind of, you know, ethereal looking color to it with thorns and all that stuff, which we saw one of the thorns in Fiona's hand. So now we have to kind of figure out what all this means, while Enchantress Wizard is being attacked by that same bear that attacked Finn as we ended and culminated the end of episode 1. I'm excited. I'm hyped. I hope you are too, and would love to hit the subscribe button. Join us for this adventure, as every single week there will be an episode dropping until Christmas Day. So very excited to see all the good content that we have pertaining to this, as well as we cover other things like Gachi Kuda. We'll be covering Hazbin Hotel for the first time starting next week. Really excited to see where that series goes overall. And we cover a ton of other great animes, as like My Hero Academia, One Punch Man, Gachi Kuda, etc., etc., etc. And we live stream Monday through Wednesday. A lot of good stuff for you, the viewer, to enjoy. I'm Brent for Geek Variants, covering Fiona and Cake's episode 1, The Hare and the Sprout. I'll see you in the next episode.